Welcome to This Week from Blue Mountain Broadcasting. I'm your host, Lynelle Ellis, the president of Blue Mountain Broadcasting Association, and I'm really glad that you've tuned in to the program today. You know, each time we have an interview, and today I'm going to be interviewing Pastor Stephen Farr, who is in our community this week, sharing meetings at the Village Seventh-day Adventist Church, particularly for youth and young adults, but there are people of all ages attending as well. I have noticed a significant number of young people at the meetings, and that's pretty exciting. So when we have our interview portion, he's going to share with us the message, the basic message that he's sharing during these meetings, and invite you to come to the remaining meetings as well. And we're also going to be sharing with you some very important items during our station news segment, so be sure to stay tuned all the way to the end of the program for that. And now we are going to begin with our devotional thought. And today, because I'm going to be talking with Pastor Stephen Farr about these meetings that are called Set Apart, I wanted to talk with you along some of those same themes about being chosen, how God has come and chosen each one of us, and how He has set us apart from the regular stuff going on in the world to do a very special mission for Him. And as you, I'm sure, will hear from Pastor Stephen, he chooses all kinds of people. And those of you who know Stephen Farr know that he has a very colorful and interesting background, and many of us might have thought, well, that might be the last person God would choose. But yet God is looking for each one of us. He wants to work in our lives and do something amazing with our lives. And so today during our devotional, we are going to look at the life of a woman who was certainly not expected to be the person who was going to become a major witness for Jesus and His ministry. She was not part of the group, not part of the club, not part of the right religious affiliation, and yet she became very, very powerful for the gospel. We're going to be looking at this devotional from the book, The Chosen. This devotional is 40 Days with Jesus. And this story comes from the book of John. So we'll begin by reading from John chapter 4, verses 5 through 10. Jesus came to a town of Samaria called Sychar. Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." But she said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria?" For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked Him, and He would have given you living water." It was high noon in Samaria, and Jesus was talking to a woman. The moment was remarkable because Jews typically hated Samaritans. The offspring of intermarriage, which Jewish law prohibited, they were a nation of people who were half Jew, half Gentile, and therefore wholly despised. In fact, even though Samaria was located in between when traveling from Judea to Galilee, Jews added days to their journey by walking clear around it. But not Jesus. Also remarkable was the timing, because water was always drawn in the morning when the sun was still low. The well was on the outskirts of town, and the work was arduous. Drawing water at noon in the desert heat was a clear sign this woman was avoiding people, and Jesus knew why. Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." Her reputation preceded her, probably everywhere she went. She'd been used and tossed away, or maybe she was in the habit of tossing men away. Whatever the reason, her life was wrought with scandal and void of friendship. And I can only imagine what the townspeople said behind her back, or maybe to her face, which made what came next the most remarkable of all. The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things. Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. Those 7 words, spoken to the least likely of humans, changed the course of history. I who speak to you am he. Until that moment, Jesus had only implied his true identity. The actual words, the announcement of God's arrival on earth, the fulfillment of hundreds of years of messianic prophecy, the Master's plan to restore the whole creation, were whispered to the one no one wanted. He knew she'd be there. He knew her name and her pain and her need. She was, in fact, the reason he came, because from the well of Christ's immense and indiscriminating mercy flows his mission: to rescue and redeem the lost. Whoever drinks of the water that I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. So let's ask God together. Ask him to completely rid us of any prejudice that we might have toward anyone that we see differently, that we might see the way they saw the Samaritan woman. Let's ask him to help us see those people the way Christ did, so that we can value them and the desire to give them living water over everything else. We all have been chosen. We have been set apart. We have been called. And it is our mission to reach out to everyone, whoever they may be, despite whatever prejudices we may hold. And it's so interesting because this woman from Samaria ended up telling the whole town about Jesus. She was the one who became the big witness that led lots and lots of people to come to Jesus, to learn of him, and to be saved. So God can use every one of us, whether we've come from a very sheltered background or a crazy background. He wants to work in our lives and bring other people to him and to his kingdom. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Joining me now is Stephen Farr, pastor, and right now here in our community for a very special reason. So it's great to have you on the show, Stephen. And first of all, we'll probably begin and end with this, but tell us what's going on here in our valley right now that you're involved with.
Okay, well, I have a very exciting opportunity. Pastor Kenny and Dan Solis invited me to be a part of a youth revival for youth and young adults. But let me just say this at the very beginning. This youth revival for youth and young adults that's going on at the Village Church, it started on July 23rd. It's going all the way through the 30th at 7 p.m. We started in a tent on the front lawn.
Yes.
We've now moved into the chapel because, as you know, the heat in College Place is crazy right now. But this series of meetings that I'm doing is a youth and young adult revival meeting for all ages.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people say, well, why do you specify that it's for youth and young adults if it's for all ages? Well, it's because Jesus said, if you want to get into my kingdom, become like the little children. So I want to invite I want to invite everyone in College Place, everyone in Walla Walla, anyone in the surrounding area, come out at 7 p.m. at the Village Church. We've moved inside the youth chapel, and we are doing a series of meetings, and our theme is set apart and sub-themed, get used to different.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have you expand on that a little bit. And I thought maybe the difference was that right now you're wearing a suit, but at the meetings you're wearing a t-shirt with some cool logo every night and something fantastic to say about God's kingdom on it. And that's why it's a youth meeting.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually once told that I was not allowed to come to church because I didn't have the right clothes on. And I was in jeans and a t-shirt. And I still actually, you'll notice before I get up and preach, I have to take off my hat. I've been wearing my Camp Maivaden hat. We all know that we love Camp Maivaden. But I hear my grandfather in the back of my head saying, well, you can't preach in the church with the hat on, or you shouldn't be inside the church with the hat on. I still have to take the hat off before I can get up and preach because I don't know how to do that. But I want the young people, the youth and the young adults, and even the older generation, the mid-age, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, the older generation, I want them to realize that, listen, God is asking us to call people of all different kinds, all shapes and sizes, all different backgrounds, all different economic statuses, all different kinds of wardrobes to come to Jesus.
Yes.
And what I'm wearing on the outside would never keep Jesus from calling me to come to him. Let me give you an example. Blind Bartimaeus sitting at the gate in Jericho, right? Jesus comes by and he starts crying out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me, right? And the crowd says, shh, be quiet. The important religious teacher's here, and you're not the kind of person he wants to interact with, right? You're not dressed, your life isn't such, and you have nothing to offer Jesus, so he doesn't have any time for you, right?
Yes.
And that's a world mindset. But what happens with blind Bartimaeus? Jesus calls him, and then suddenly the crowd's opinion of him changes.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And then blind Bartimaeus throws off his cloak. It was actually the thing signifying that he had the right to be a beggar, right? And he runs to Jesus because he knows Jesus is about to heal me and I'm never going to need this cloak that I wear that signifies I'm allowed to beg again, right? Mm-hmm. And so we as people who are a part of the church need to get better at realizing that every single person that's ever been born into this world is set apart by God to do good things.
Open that up for us a little bit more, this idea of set apart.
Well, let me just share with you the meetings that we're doing at the Village Church at 7 p.m. every night this week, all the way through Saturday night. So we're going to be there tonight. So this will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you haven't come to a meeting yet, you can still come. And you can hear about how God has set you apart for good things, and you can get used to a church that's different. And it's actually built on the ministry of Jesus. Okay, so here we go. There's a text, John 15, verse 16. This is one of the most exciting texts in the entire Bible for you, for me, and for everybody listening right now on Blue Mountain Television. Okay, check this out. It says, you did not choose me, but I chose you, and, this is the good part. You didn't just get chosen. Check this out. And I appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. Here's the thing.
Huge. It's huge.
It is huge. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Guess what? God chose you. And God chose me. And God chose every single one of the youth and young adults that walk through that door, regardless of the background that they're coming from, the economic status that they're coming from, the clothes that they're wearing, whatever it is that's happening in their life. Because when we come to Jesus, even if we're a blind beggar sitting at a gate that has a Roman permit, a cloak, saying, hey, I'm allowed to beg because my life is so messed up that that's all I got going for me. When we come to Jesus, no matter where we're coming from, no matter where we're starting from, coming to Jesus is something that we do because he chose us. Mm-hmm. We didn't choose him, he chose us. He calls us, just like he did blind Bartimaeus. And here's the second part. When he calls us, he doesn't leave us the way he found us.
Yes.
And he has something for us to do. And here's what it is. Bring other people to him so that their life can be changed too. And so when the verse says, I appointed you, I chose you, and I appointed you that you should bear fruit, what it's talking about is that not only am I choosing you, but after I choose you, your life is now going to make a difference in every person's life that you ever interact with. You're now a world changer.
Yes. It's not the same anymore. My life cannot be the same anymore once I'm connected to Jesus and once I'm part of his team.
Yep.
Absolutely. And you know that in your own life 100% through your own experiences.
Right, and I'm glad you mentioned that it's, for me, it's very real because as you know, as I've been sharing through my testimony in the first several nights of the meetings, I was a 24-year-old man working at a Jack in the Box, and I was so poor that I was literally sleeping in bus stops and surfing on people's couches and floors. Okay? That's where God called me from. Now, let me ask you a question. If somebody told you that the person that was going to be the pastor of your church was sleeping in bus stops and working at Jack in the Box, how excited would you be about that?
Well, I don't know.
That's a tough question, isn't it? Yeah. But
I would probably have questions. I would want to know more, that's for sure.
You would want to know more, that's for sure. But here's the beautiful thing about that, comparing my life to blind Bartimaeus's. When Jesus called me, he didn't leave me in the bus stop, did he?
No, not at all.
Right. And so the beautiful thing about what God does is he chooses us, he calls us, and he knows that with his faith, with his righteousness, with his strength that's made perfect in our weakness, that everything is possible. When there was a rich young ruler that came to Jesus and he says, how can I get into the kingdom of God? And he goes, I'll tell you what, sell everything that you have and also give up all that you just told me about how you've kept the law and how good you've been from birth and how you've never done anything wrong. Set aside everything that you just told me about yourself that qualifies you for my kingdom, because it doesn't actually.
Right. And
follow
then, me.
Now follow me. And in that place where you don't have all of your money and you don't have all of your rule keeping that you can boast about, you'll actually have an opportunity to get to know a Savior that can save you because you know that you need to be saved.
This is so good because I think maybe particularly and especially for those of us who sort of grow up with your on Monday night, you were talking about, that those of us who grew up with parents who aren't divorced and who gave us a stable background and who sent us to Christian school, we have a story too. And I think that we do, but it has its own challenges they're very different from the challenges that maybe you went through in your experiences. But our challenges can be that we can just be self-reliant and think that we had it so good, we had it all figured out. And that doesn't work either.
And what's beautiful about what you just said is this. You have people who we perceive on the outside, and we have people who we perceive on the inside. And by these perceptions, we have created a world in which we live in our own prisons. Okay? So for instance, I could live in the prison of identifying as a person who's a homeless pastor in a bus stop. Do I look like I'm homeless in a bus stop to you right now?
No.
Okay. Now, that really is where I came from. You could identify as a person who says, well, I grew up in Adventism.
Yeah.
And so I don't know anything about those people. Here's the design of Satan. He wants to keep God's people divided. And what Jesus says is no, wait a minute. Whether you see yourself as on the outside or whether you see yourself on the inside, I chose you, and I chose you to do good works. But here's the thing. The person on the outside can't do the works unless they come to Jesus. And guess what? The person on the inside may have a life that looks good, but you're not going to end up doing the works that Jesus did and greater works than these unless you know that you need Jesus, even though you've never been a prodigal.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, because you can be off track, really off track, and just have a life that looks put together. But if you aren't relying on Him 100%, if you haven't surrendered your life to Him, if you aren't connected with Him every day, then you're just doing your cultural routine.
Yep. And here's the thing I want to make sure I say this. Here's the exciting thing. If you go to Romans, I had two texts that I chose. I already shared John 15, which says I chose you, okay? All right. In Romans chapter 1, Paul starts out this way. He says, Paul, a bondservant of Jesus Christ, called to be an apostle, separated, set apart by God to the gospel of God, which he promised before through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures.
That's where
concerning his son, Jesus
apart.
Christ. Yep. So here's the thing. You know what? Every single person who's ever born into this world has been set apart by God for adoption through Christ to become a disciple, to share the character of God with people all over the world. There isn't anybody that is incapable of sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with the help of the Holy Spirit. Okay? And so it says, Paul says, through him, through Jesus, we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to faith among all nations for his name. In other words, listen, guess what? All of us from God have been given a faith which actually empowers us to obey and gives us the responsibility of apostleship, discipleship, to share the gospel of the kingdom in the entire world.
And that gives every one of us something really exciting and important to do.
Right, because he says...
We're not going to be living a life without meaning.
He says in Matthew 24:14, he says, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached into all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then Jesus will come again, and guess what? You've been set apart and chosen to be part of it, and guess what? Jesus even wants to do it in and through you in a way that's totally different and totally radical compared to anything that you've ever seen or experienced. And so it's exciting, and this is why I can say from Romans 1:16, this was the verse I wanted to share. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God. Look at that. There's power in it. That means it's going to change you, and it's going to make you a world changer. When Jesus is living in and through you by his Spirit, you are going to end up changing the lives of every person you touch. I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first and also for the Greek. So let me change that up to a modern context. The power of the gospel can change the life of the person who's in the church, and for the person who we perceive as the outsider. And here's the crazy thing. Jesus was an outsider. Mm-hmm. Paul was an outsider. And it was those outsiders that changed the church into an agency that could change the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Stephen, thank you so much. We're out of time, so let's wrap up once again by reminding people where they go, how they come to the last 3 meetings that are still taking place when this show airs.
Okay, so the beautiful thing is that all of the messages stand all on their own, and we even have been putting, since the 3rd message, on Facebook.
Yes.
Go to the Village Church Facebook. You can check out the messages that you've missed, but you can come on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. We are meeting in the youth chapel because of the heat. You'll be happy to know that we are going to have air conditioning. So,
yes.
Regardless of how young or old you are, please come at 7 p.m. at the Village Church in College Place for our youth and young adult revival meetings. They are called Set Apart. And friends, it's time to get used to different. Let's get used to a gospel that has power to change my life and then make me a world changer.
Amen. All right. Thanks, Stephen. And thank you. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Time now for station news. I wanted to let you know some exciting news about Secret Life of the Desert. You need to be paying attention as we're coming up to the last episode of season 1 of Secret Life of the Desert. That's going to air this Sunday at 7 p.m. So you'll definitely want to tune into that. In fact, I'd like to give you a little description of this particular episode to whet your appetite for it. This is the description. As we continue to explore the Pueblo Mountains, we reveal some of its most spectacular plants, including Indian paintbrush, buckwheats, and penstemons. I might not say that right. To name a few. We will also visit the Malheur Refuge headquarters, Peter French Round Barn, and also Diamond Craters. So this is really going to be a great episode of the show, Secret Life of the Desert, and we've been so excited to bring this program to you. And now here we are at the last episode of season 1 of Secret Life of the Desert. Now, don't despair, because there is a season 2 of Secret Life of the Desert, and that is going to be coming up soon. It's planned for the fall, so you need to be kind of listening as we share on this show and promos that will air on the station and that sort of thing, so that you will know when you can watch season 2 of Secret Life of the Desert. Also, you should know that there are repeats of this same program that's going to air on Sunday at 7 p.m., on Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m., and also Thursdays at 6 p.m. So just keep that in mind, mark your calendars for that, and enjoy as we are bringing season 1 to a close here on Blue Mountain Television. And if you're saying to yourself, I really need my own copy of Secret Life of the Desert, that is totally possible. So you can either use a digital download and purchase a digital download or a DVD of season 1. And you can do that at secretlifetv.com. Secretlifetv.com is where you go to purchase either a digital download or a DVD. And if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to go to the website to do it, you can always call us at the station at 509-529-9149, and we will be happy to get you set up with your own copy of the show. And now I am holding something here in my hand. It's not even a fundraiser, and yet I have something to give you. This is thanks to one of our very, very generous viewers and supporters who wants to remain anonymous, but has donated a number of copies of this book, Patriarchs and Prophets. And some of you are saying, oh, I know that book. I've read it several times. I really love it. I really like it. I already have a copy. I don't need one. But you might know somebody who needs a copy of this, or you might be watching right now and saying, I have never heard of that book. What is it about? And so I just wanted to share with you a little bit about this book. This book is by Ellen G. White, and it is a description or an expanding of the stories of the first part of the Old Testament. So it talks about creation. It actually begins before creation, with the how sin even got into this universe, and then moves into the creation, Adam and Eve, and then on down Noah and Jacob, and I skipped Abraham, and Moses. So you are going to find out in this book about all of those interesting and engaging Old Testament characters. And I have to tell you, having read this a couple of times myself, that the stories in here are profound. They're engaging. The spiritual lessons that come through so strong out of the lives of these individuals that we read about in the Old Testament are really, really powerful. It's an amazing book. I couldn't recommend it more highly. And this is your chance to get your own free copy of the book, Patriarchs and Prophets. So you can do that by calling the station at 509-529-9149. We'll just get your address and send it out to you. There aren't any obligations on your part at all. Just one of our viewers wants to share this amazing book with you. So thank you. And it's maybe a little early to tell you about this, but why not? We're all looking forward to the fair coming to Walla Walla, as it does each year. A very exciting time for our community, and we just wanted you to know that Blue Mountain Television will be there with our booth once again, and we'll actually be closer to the front entrance than we've ever been before, so it'll be really easy to find our booth, and we can't wait to meet you and talk with you at the Walla Walla Fair and Frontier Days. So just wanted to let you know we're planning on that. And also, something exciting is coming up for me. I'm going to be traveling here in a few days for Blue Mountain Television all the way to Orlando, Florida for the ASI convention. Adventist Layman Services and Industries is what it stands for. And this is a great time to connect, to network, to meet other people who are passionate about God's kingdom. And so I am really, really looking forward to being at ASI on behalf of Blue Mountain Television. And of course, when I get back, I'll have reports for you about how that event went. Once again, I'd like to thank you for your donations to Blue Mountain Television, for praying for the ministry, and for watching this show. I'll see you next time.